Hi there, just want to do a quick tutorial on getting very simple TDP control on Linux. In this case, I'll be showing it to you specifically on ChimeraOS, but it also works on other distros. Like I'm using it on Ubuntu, and it does work. So just to show you what it'll look like, here is this TDP app, which has been added to Steam as a non-Steam game. And if you play it, it shows up with this very simple TDP bar, which lets you change the TDP. That's really all it is. And I can show you the exact same thing on my Aya Neo Air Pro. So here it is. If I pull up the TDP app and just run it, you can see you get the same TDP bar. That's really it. Pretty simple, nothing too crazy. So let's get started. So let's leave this and go into desktop mode. And let's switch to desktop. All right, so the first thing we need is you need to have this utility called RyzenAdj installed. ChimeraOS already has it pre-installed, but you could install it on any Linux distro. You just need to figure out how. So just to make sure it's installed, you can type in which RyzenAdj. It'll show you the location where it's installed, which is this location here. And to make sure it's working, you could type in sudo RyzenAdj-i, and that'll show you like your TDP info. So in this case, you could see that the current TDP is 10 watts. It has a boost TDP of 12. The slow TDP is 10. Like, it gives you a lot of extra information here. But basically, if this is working, if you see the table, then everything's all good. Your RyzenAdj is configured properly. But there is a chance on 6800U devices specifically, like this WinMax 2, you'll run into an error that looks like this. If I pull up a screenshot of the error, you'll see where it shows like, where there's an error where it failed to get this table. And that's because you need to add an extra boot parameter to your Linux kernel. And for to do that, you'll have to, depending on your distro, it'll be different. For ChimeraOS specifically, you'll need to edit the syslinux.config file. And that file is at, let me see, I saved it in documents. There you go. So that's the location of the actual config file. You need to edit it. So you could do like a sudo vim/boot/efi/syslinux.cfg. And then here at the very end of the append root file, you need to add an extra parameter called iomem equals relaxed. If you add that parameter and reboot, then your RyzenAdj should start working. In this case, I already did it. So when I type in RyzenAdj-i, well, with a sudo in front of it, it just works, right? So there's that. Other distros you may have to do otherwise. But once you see that table, then you'll know that it's working. Once you've confirmed that your RyzenAdj is working, then you could go to this app, this simple Ryzen TDP app. The link will be in the description. You could, there's two ways to install it. There's a regular install script, and that regular install script is for other distros, not ChimeraOS. So think like Ubuntu or whatever. This one's made generic. And what you would do is you would download this, there's an install script here. So you would download this install script. And then once you download it, you would actually run it from terminal. So it'd be something like /install.sh. And then you need to type in the path of where your RyzenAdj is. So on ChimeraOS, it's /user/bin/RyzenAdj. But you know, ChimeraOS, there's a specific installer for ChimeraOS that we'll be using in this case. So this is the actual file itself. So let's just download it. So if you view the raw file, and then you save the page, and let's just save it to downloads, right? So if we go into our files and go to downloads, you'll now see that script file is there, right? So let's open this in console. So we know the script file is there if we type in ls, and it should list all the files, and it's there. So first chmod +x ChimeraOS install, and all that does is that it makes it executable, and then just type in /ChimeraOS install.sh. That will run it and download all the files you need for it to be fully working. So let's just let it run. All right, so now finish running. And to make sure that it ran successfully, if you just look in your apps and look for simple Ryzen TDP, it should show up. If you just installed it, it might take like a minute or two for it to actually show up in your apps. but you can just click it now, and you'll run, and the app will show up. There's actually one more step we need to do here. So what we need to do is do the same thing we just did, but you need to run it as sudo as well. So sudo, and then you need to run the ChimeraOS install as well. You need to run it twice. For the regular install too, the regular install script, you also need to run it twice with sudo. So you run it once with sudo, type in your sudo password, and then it's done. And that's all you need to do for installing it. Then all you need to do now is go into Steam. And in Steam, go to add a game, add a non-Steam game, and then look for that simple Ryzen TDP. In this case, it's not showing up because I've already added it. So if I go into the library, and you'll see, if I search simple Ryzen TDP, it's already there. Cool. So now one last step is to configure it for use with a controller. So let's just go back to gaming mode, and then we could configure it for use with a controller. So now we're back in gaming mode, and we could just run the simple TDP app. And if you'll notice here, let me pull up the keyboard so you can see. If you type in tab, it's a little hard to see. Okay, so if you type tab on the keyboard, you notice that the cursor goes back and forth, right? And shift tab will go backwards. So basically what you need to do is you need to map the controller to have tab be, tab go down, and then shift tab go up. So if you see here, if I go to my D-pad, you can see I have shift tab for to go backwards, and then tab for to go forward. And then I had the left and right arrows mapped to the arrow keys, which lets me here do the simple arrow keys like that. But yeah, besides that, that's really it. Now you have simple TDP control. Oh, before I forget, I would also recommend you set a TDP on app start. So just fill in all these values. So like your minimum and max TDP, your TDP that you want to be triggered on when the app starts, and also if you want TDP to be preserved across suspend resumes. Because sometimes when you suspend and resume, it resets the TDP to like a default value. So this will, if you just check this off, this will keep it such that it'll keep whatever the most recent TDP you set was. But yeah. Oh, and one last thing. Here I'm just showing you the same app on a regular Linux desktop. So this is Ubuntu 22.10. So here I already have it installed. It's all working. On Ubuntu, you get the additional tray menu. So you can change the TDP here, and it'll change the TDP. And you could also have the window. That's my own computer having a problem. Okay, anyways, you'd also like hide and show the window and have it run in the background. Anyways, that's it.